Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me today on Emma's Pixie Dust, a little bit of magic with. I have a very special guest with me tonight, and it's not completely Disney themed, it's actually focusing more on the theme park theme. That kind of goes, doesn't it? And I'm quite nervous about this chat because I'm not really a theme park person as such, but I've done some research and I'd love to know in the chat if I get anything wrong, or my guests can let me know if I get anything wrong, then just correct me. For people in the chat who are watching, if you are just taking in anything on board, if you have any questions for myself or my guests tonight, then please just drop them in the comments and I'll obviously share with the guests. And today's guest is someone who turns out doesn't live that far from me, which is really exciting, and is very inspirational because of the nerves, shall we say, the nerves that they get for going on certain roller coasters and attractions at theme parks. And I get nervous as well. So I thought this week I'd introduce you all to Anxious Rider 78, also known as Darren. Let's bring Darren in. Hey, Darren.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm loving the
weird.
It is weird, isn't it? We've been having some technical issues behind the scenes just before we came live, so we're just hoping that it's not going to happen again now. Can I just say, I love the lights behind you. The lights
Thanks.
changing behind you. It's really aesthetically pleasing for me. So that's exciting. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm all good. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird being the guest. I've done Adam's show, and but it's always weird being the guest, not having to be doing things while I'm talking.
Yeah.
It's nice, but it's weird.
It's weird for me doing this still. And then I was on Adam's show, and that was strange for me as well, actually. So I know what you mean. I'm coming from both perspectives now, and I know exactly what you mean. So I want you to firstly introduce yourself to people who might be watching and don't know who you are. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I'm the Anxious Rider, and I'm Darren, obviously. I've got my wife and 4 children, 2 from a previous marriage, and 2 younger ones with Karen, my lovely wife, who, if any of you saw my show on Monday, was my guest. I started doing theme parks in 2019 when we became Merlin pass holders. I was the bag carrier, basically. Way too scared to go on anything, so I was the bag carrier. Karen was the adrenaline junkie, and she was the one that did all the rides. I might get on some of the little kiddie rides, but that was about it. And then I think, as with all of us, lockdown changed people.
Yeah.
And I've actually got a T-shirt with YOLO written on it, and the reason I have that is because I had a YOLO moment where I sort of thought, there's this virus out there that could strike anybody down at any minute, and you could get it by just going to the supermarket, which we all consider to be something incredibly safe to do, but I'm too scared to get on these machines that are super safety tested, and it just didn't make any sense to me. My logical brain just went boom. What on earth's going on? Why?
Yeah.
What is going on here? So obviously I then started trying to brave a bit more. 2020 was difficult because of lockdowns and things, but it was sort of the start. And then we got into 21, and that's when it really started. I was kind of like, right, okay, I'm going to beat this. And, and start, that's when the ball started rolling, and just then gradually moving from coaster to coaster, ticking them off as I went. And I got to pretty much the end of 2021, and I'd done just about every big roller coaster that Merlin had on any of their parks. And the one that I didn't have was the icing on the cake for me at the time, which was the Smiler. And that was sadly because of the breakdown at the end of 2021. So I had to wait until early 22 for that. And I was involved quite heavily in a Facebook group for Merlin annual pass holders.
Okay.
And they were, they were really supportive and encouraging, and so and then some of the people I got quite friendly with in there said, "Oh, you should start an Instagram account and a YouTube channel and help other people, do what you're doing." And I was sort of like, "What do you think anybody would be interested?" And they were like, "Well, it might inspire other people, you know." And I thought, do you know what? Okay, if it's nothing more than to just tell my story, that's fine. And that's where the first, very, very first, very rough video came from.
Okay.
Which has had about 20 different titles since I uploaded it, because I keep changing my mind about what I want it to be. But it's basically my backstory,
Yeah.
up until the point I filmed it. And then from then on, it's just been finding new challenges, and and obviously sometimes fears come back, and so yes, that's who I am. I am the anxious rider.
Well, now you've conquered most of the big roller coasters in the Merlin Pass, shall we say? Are you more anxious still, or is Karen more anxious now? Who do you weigh up to be more anxious?
I'm still the more anxious.
Okay.
I think Karen's very good at. She'll just get on a ride. She's a bit more restricted because sadly her condition means that she often can't get on them anymore. So it's not a case of anxiety for her. It is a case of just physically not being in a position to do it.
Yeah.
If it's a roller coaster that I'm used to, so for example, the Swarm, I can just walk on the Swarm, no
Yeah.
issue. But there are still some that I have conquered, but they still make me nervous. Oblivion is one, but I think a lot of people are like that with Oblivion. It creates that kind of expectational fear,
Yeah.
until you've got on it. But but yeah, so it's I'm still anxious, and new rides, of course,
Yeah.
still cause me anxiety. It's the unknown. The unknown is a big thing for me. I don't
Yeah.
know what it feels like. I don't know what it's going to do necessarily, which is why I do a lot of research.
Yeah.
I watch endless POVs, on and off ride,
Hmm.
just to give me that knowledge of what it's going to do,
Yeah.
and just kind of imagine what it might feel like, and that helps to calm things.
Okay. So you think that does help them, or do you feel that sometimes you've watched them thinking that you know what it's going to be like, and then when you're actually doing it, it's completely different to even what you've seen on a point of view?
Yeah, there have been rides where I've had an expectation or an idea of what I think it's going to feel like, and then I've done it and actually realized, okay, that was nothing like I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Um, and I think the classic one of that actually was the Smiler. I built up this idea in my head that it was massively scary, and it was really intense, and it was all these things, and it was going to absolutely scare me to death. And I remember getting on it the first time, getting off and going, "Oh, that wasn't what I expected."
Mm.
In a positive way,
Okay.
actually loved it. Um, but yeah, I was expecting to get off and be shaking, and and I wasn't at all, and was like, "Right, let's go and get back on that then." And I think I literally that day went straight back into the queue and got on it again.
Oh wow, that's brilliant. I think that's me with Tower of Terror. I was just talking to you about that previously, actually. I am a person that once I've done it, I want to go on it again, even though at first I'm terrified of it.
Yeah.
And have you ever ridden Tower of Terror?
No, unfortunately I've never been to any of the Disney parks. I've got them on my bucket list.
Yeah,
It is one of those sort of dreams to whisk the family away.
yeah,
And it's we are we are optimistic that that it'll happen. I think we'll probably wait until Elijah's a little bit older so that he can
yeah,
really appreciate it a bit more.
yeah,
Um, but I've heard of Tower of Terror because, of course, Coaster Chicken James
yeah.
tells that famous story of when his wife persuaded him to do Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that didn't end very well.
I must admit, since riding Tower of Terror my first time, I have nightmares now about lifts. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I still go on it. So you were saying about a smiler. So I have a fact here for you. Apparently, it's the most number one in the UK still roller coaster with the most inversions. Did you know that?
Yes, it still holds the world record for the number
Yeah,
of
and do you know
inversions.
what it is? What number?
14.
Hey, you do know. Brilliant. So, how does it make you feel going on all those inversions?
I actually really like inversions.
You do?
Yeah, I'm more scared of drops.
Okay.
So inversions don't bother me. You can flip me upside down as many times as you like.
Yeah.
I don't mind. It's things like airtime hills and drops that
Okay.
make me more nervous. So I
Yeah.
suppose the Smiler really is the perfect ride for me because it
Yeah.
does just keep flipping you upside down. So that's fine. But yeah, so I do love it for that reason.
Oh, perfect. So, what about Colossus? Because that's got 10, hasn't it? So,
I remember first time I rode Colossus. Sadly, I came off having, like most people, had the head banging.
yeah.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy how I felt afterwards, the headache and everything else. I've learnt with Colossus, there's a way to ride Colossus that doesn't give you that issue.
Okay.
And I tell people this all the time. It's whatever you do, don't sit back. Lean into the restraint, put your head through and keep it forward. Because then if your head does move around, it's not bouncing off the restraints.
That's a very good point.
And I find then Colossus actually is a very enjoyable ride. I do
Yeah.
love, and that heartline roll at the end, love it. It's my
Yep.
favourite bit.
That's my favorite bit too, and that's the reason why it's my favorite coaster in the whole of the UK. I must admit, it definitely is my favorite. And I love Tidal Wave. That's not a roller coaster, but I still love it. Um,
Yeah, I'm not a water rides person at all.
you're not. I was going to ask you
No.
that actually. So obviously you've got if for anyone who hasn't actually checked out Darren's YouTube, there's all different shorts on there as well. And there was one that I saw, which is obviously a water ride where they're coming down the raft. Do you know
Yes.
which one I'm talking? Yes. Okay. So I wanted to know, would you ever do a water ride when it's raining, even if it's in the summer season?
I don't think I would. And do you know, it's funny because obviously I asked that question myself, and so many people were like, "Oh, but once you're wet, and that's it." And I was like, "No, for me, it's if you do a water ride on a hot sunny day, the chances are you'll get soaking wet, you'll dry off,
Yep.
and I'd be sort of okay with that. But the thought of coming off a water ride soaking wet and then staying wet for the rest of the day because it's raining
Yep.
just doesn't appeal at all.
No.
The two worst things for me are being cold and being wet.
Yep. Same as me.
So yeah, I wouldn't. For me, no. Water rides in the rain, no, thank you.
No, no, no. Unless it's the end of the day. For me, if it was an end of the day thing, then I would, and then I'll just go back to the car and change them. But yeah, and I
Yeah,
remember last time I went to Fort Park, it was like £2 to go into those little stand-in heaters, just for like 2 minutes, if that. So the prices must have gone up on that as well.
I think they're like £3 now, and they're
That's
still
crazy.
just as ineffective. They're awful.
Yeah.
When we went to Thorpe Park a few weeks ago, there was a big crowd of us, and it was wet, and a couple of the people in our group, I think Sean, Grumpy Theme Park Dude, was one of them, and Poppy. They paid to get in one of those heaters to try and dry off a little bit because it was a very wet day,
Yeah.
and they came out and said they didn't feel any drier. They just felt warm and damp now rather than cold and damp.
Yeah. No. It just freaks me out. If it's hot in
Yeah,
summer, yeah, definitely. But no, otherwise not for me.
agreed.
So talking about that, like weather situations and stuff, what's your favorite season, I guess? So obviously there's off peak and on peak. But for instance, like you've got fright nights. Do you prefer fright nights, or do you prefer just average days at a theme park?
I think in the early days, so probably 2022. I say that early days. I know it's only a year, but I probably avoided events because they were likely to cause queues. And one thing I found when I was trying to conquer rides was the length of time I spent in a queue had an impact on how anxious I was by the time I got on a ride.
Okay.
So I would try and go for quieter weekends and try and avoid busy times. Last year, I made a real effort to attend as many events as possible, and actually really enjoyed that. Found it, it just adds another dimension to the day at the park. So,
Yeah.
so this year, I will again make a point of trying to get to Thorpe Park for Mardi Gras, Carnival, Fright
Yeah.
Nights. Whereas, as I say, previously I would have avoided them. I think if I had to choose one of those events, at Thorpe Park, I really enjoyed Carnival.
Okay.
It was a bit different, and it kind of brought Fright Nights into the summer a little bit.
Mhm.
So that was quite clever. I thought Chessington, I just love every event they do.
Okay.
There's just something about events at Chessington are just out of this world. They just do it so well. I'd Mardi Gras last year. I did Mardi Gras at Thorpe Park. It was poor. I did Mardi Gras at Alton Towers. I thought, oh, this is fantastic. I then did Mardi Gras at Chessington. Excuse the odd mouth, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
And it completely blew me away. It was just absolutely, they'd got it spot on throughout the park
Yeah.
and everything. So I do like those events now. But as I said, originally I would have avoided them because of queuing, etc. But now I feel more confident. I'm not so put off
Yeah.
by those things.
Yeah. With me at Disney, I actually get quite frustrated when there's loads of crowds. But then you're expecting that at Disney to be unfair. And just a random fact, you might know him, you might not. One of my friends actually works as one of the cast. I don't know if you call it cast members at theme parks in UK, but one of the casts in Fort Park during Mardi Gras. And he's done it for like the last 4 years, 5 years since they've had it. So just thought I'd let you know that. His name's Dylan,
Oh,
if you ever see him. So don't
I'll
you
have to
recognize him?
I'll have to check that out because I actually have a couple of the cast members, if you like, that follow me on Instagram, because I got
Okay.
to know them, and I did
Yeah.
have I had one of the cast members did one of my shows a few weeks back.
Okay.
And of course, if anybody's seen the recent video that I guest starred in, if you like, with Mike from Joan to the Attractions and my dancing escapades at Thorpe Park. But now that thrill maker now follows me on Instagram and has subscribed to
Oh,
my
brilliant.
YouTube channel as well. So yeah, and it's always nice to build those relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I'll pass on your details and vice versa, because
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
he's an awesome guy, and he's like addicted to theme parks, but he's also into performing. So that's how I know him. So
Yeah.
yeah, brilliant, awesome. Right, let's get on to some of these other things that I have written down for you. So I've done that. So you have another short that I saw, and it kind of made me think. So there's a ride again at Fort Park. I'm going to focus on that quite a lot, called Quantum. Now,
Yes.
you have put the title being, should it be retired? Should it not? I personally think it should myself. However, it was the first ride I ever went on. So I have a novelty feeling towards it. How about yourself? What do you deep down think about it?
I'm actually quite like you on this because I remember before I started braving the really big rides, I remember a day at Thorpe Park, and I was feeling a bit braver. So it was probably 2020,
Yeah,
in between lockdowns, and I remember saying to my oldest son TJ
yeah,
that I wanted to try something that wasn't too extreme, but that was a bit more than flying fish. You know, and I sort of looked at quantum, and you know, and he said to me, he said, "Oh, yeah, quantum, it's just a family kiddie ride. You know, you'll be fine on that, absolutely fine." And I remember I was terrified,
Yeah.
absolutely terrified of quantum. But so I do have that nostalgia for it.
Yeah.
However, I think in the greater scheme of things, it's now quite an old ride,
Mhm.
and it never has a queue, which says it's unpopular,
Yeah.
you know, and I just think, you know, I think in the interest of keeping on top of new rides coming out, it would probably be the one that I would have to get rid of if I was Thorpe Park, if I was making
Yeah.
room for a new flat ride,
Yeah.
um, because the others are all still very popular, and a bit more current.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, I think I'd have to sacrifice quantum. I'd have to
Okay.
put nostalgia aside,
Yeah.
and you know, if they said to me tomorrow, do you know, we've got the potential of securing a nebula or nebulous like Loki at Drayton Manor, but
Yeah.
the only place we can put it is where quantum is, so we'd have to get rid of quantum. Then I'd be just get rid of it. You know,
Yeah.
take it away. It's been great, but it's got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you mean. And I can't remember what it's called, but I remember at Fort Park they have like a one which was like Quantum, but it was the monkeys. Was it the monkey banana? Do you remember that? Or
Oh yeah, Mr. Monkey's Banana Ride.
does
I
that
love that.
still exist? Or
Yeah. Oh, that's still there. It's been
okay.
down this season actually. It's going through some um quite serious maintenance.
Okay.
I think it's quite an old ride,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's quite a lot of fun because it's a pirate ship, but it's not a pirate ship,
Yeah. Exactly.
if you get what I mean. So it
Yeah.
and you always seem to find that the ride ops that operate it are a lot of fun. They play along with you, and they have a laugh because they appreciate the ride is just a laugh. It probably
Yeah.
doesn't belong at Thorpe Park even. You know, it's not what you'd expect to be there, but it is there,
Yeah.
and it's a bit of fun.
It is. It is fun. So going back quickly to when you got your Merlin pass, was that the first sort of time that you went to a theme park before?
No, the very first theme park I ever went to was Thorpe Park,
Yeah.
and that was actually on mine and Karen's first date
Okay.
way back in 2014,
Yeah.
because she's actually a Staines girl. She was brought up in Felton, which is obviously just around the corner from Thorpe Park, basically.
Yeah.
And her mum and dad um, own a boat which is moored in Chertsey, literally in the marina that is just out of the gates from Thorpe
Yeah.
Park. So she spent a lot of summers at Thorpe Park, and we talked about roller coasters, and I was like, oh, you know, you'll never get me on a roller coaster. I'm way too scared, and blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, somehow we ended up on our first date at a theme park, and one of the things that she wanted was obviously to get me on a roller coaster, because her logic was, if I can get you on a roller coaster, then obviously I mean that much to you. You know,
Yeah.
if you're prepared to challenge your fears, and I did. It was the last roller coaster I got on until like 2020,
Yeah.
but I did do it. So that was my one and only visit to a theme park before I became a Merlin pass holder.
Yeah. Brilliant. And out of all the Merlin past attractions that you've been to, is Fort Park your favorite, would you say?
I struggle with this because each park has something that I like apart from Legoland. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Legoland, but it's not very exciting. It's a nice park to take little children to, you know, and the Lego theming is lovely. But if I wanted to see a load of Lego theming, I've got my own Lego collection, and I'd go and visit a Lego shop maybe, or I wouldn't go just to Legoland to see the theming. You know, Skyline is amazing, love
Yeah.
it, and the Haunted House Monster Party with
I
that
love that.
amazing soundtrack is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But other than that, nothing else there really makes me want to go to Legoland.
Okay.
So Legoland definitely not. But the other three all have something quite different. They're all quite different parks.
Yeah.
Chesington is a great park for variety. It's got such a mixture of rides, and obviously with the new area opening as well, so adding another roller coaster to its collection, I just
Yeah.
think it's just going to make it even better. Alton Towers is Alton Towers. It's big and it's got everything, and it's great for that. Thorpe Park is the thrill coaster. It's where you go if you want high octane, adrenaline pumping thrills, and don't mind hanging out with a load of teenagers, and being, and listening to their street slang, and you can handle that, then Thorpe Park is great. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people don't like it because of the kind of people it tends to attract,
Yeah.
but you can't ignore the fact that it has got some of the UK's most thrilling roller coasters.
Okay.
And so for thrills, I would say Thorpe Park is obviously the best one, but I think if I really had to choose one out of the lot, I think my heart would go to Chesington.
Okay, brilliant. Apparently, I was there when I was little, but I don't actually remember it. So maybe I need to go back there.
Bless you. You do.
I was going to say that from everything that I've heard, whose cat is that? That's my cat, by the way. His name's Charlie. That's who you can hear in the background. Um,
Oh,
anyway, as I was saying, from what I've heard and seen, I thought Alton Towers was more thrill-seeking than Thorpe Park. So I'm guessing that's not how you feel.
no, I think Alton Towers has thrilling rides. It does have thrilling rides. Obviously, the Smiler, Oblivion, but they're thrilling rides in a more relaxed atmosphere. Whereas everything about Thorpe Park screams adrenaline, screams, fast pace, and I think it's not just the rides that are there at Thorpe Park, it's just the atmosphere is
Yeah.
a high octane atmosphere, whereas Alton Towers is far more relaxed. As I
Okay.
say, it has got those rides, of course it has, but I think that's why Thorpe Park has the thrill feel about it more, because the
Okay.
whole park is geared up towards it.
Yeah. I thought maybe another reason, it's just popped into my head as you're talking about it, maybe another reason why I felt like Alton Towers would have thrill is because of Wicker Man, because that looks terrifying to me. Have you actually ridden it?
I have, and I love Wicker Man, and it's I don't know. See, I place Wicker Man as a family coaster. Obviously, before I'd ridden it, I wouldn't have described it as that. And it is a great ride, and it is well themed. It's probably the best themed ride in the park. But I think it is a family coaster. I wouldn't necessarily put it into the thrill category.
Oh,
I
wow.
do love
Okay.
it. I do love it. But I'm not sure it's a thrill coaster.
Okay.
I think it has some thrilling aspects, but I wouldn't describe it as a thrilling coaster. I mean, G obviously, who is still very young. He's only 7 years old. He absolutely loves Wicker Man.
Yeah.
So I sort of gauge it on, well, he's tall enough to go on it and old enough to go on it, and he enjoys it. So it probably isn't that intense, and it probably isn't that thrilling in that respect. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's people in the live chat would probably disagree with me on that. I see Adam there's just said that he agrees it is a family
Yeah.
coaster,
That I was just saying, I was going to say that too. Yeah.
yeah, it's I suppose it's all relative, isn't it? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I just
No,
want to
I
say
wouldn't be able to
quick.
do it.
I just want to say a quick good evening to James, who's just popped
Yeah.
in.
Hi, James.
James, I hope you're really well, and I hope that whatever's going on, mate, that you're you'll get in there. You know, we love you,
Yeah.
as everybody else in this forum does, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, we love you, and we're glad that you're slowly coming back, because boy, have we missed you.
Yeah, we have, definitely, completely agree with that. Just a quick thing as well, anyone in the chat, if you want to give Darren or myself some questions to answer, please go ahead. We are more than welcome. Okay, we haven't even gone like through a quarter of what I want to ask you, so it's going really well. Okay, so I see on your recent blog it was your 50th coaster credit.
Yes.
So out of all the 50 that you've done, what is the best one?
I think my number one coaster, which I think it's a popular opinion, is probably Icon at Blackpool.
Okay.
I know it's not the most thrilling coaster in the world, but it just has a bit of everything.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of a thrill. It's got that amazing soundtrack. It looks beautiful. It's backed up with great merchandise. You know, it's obviously it's the multi-launch, but they're not vicious launches like Rita and Stealth. They're very calm sort of accelerations, and
Okay.
yeah. And then Enzo, of course, the spinning part of the back just took it to another level for me.
Yeah.
So Icon has to be my favorite so far.
So far. And what about your least favorite?
I'm not a huge fan of Rita.
Okay.
I think it's rough. I think whatever Rita does, Stealth does better. And yeah, I'd probably have to say it's my least favorite, but again, that probably that changes, you know, because I've had a good couple of rides on Rita, and I've had some quite bad rides on Rita, as I have with a lot of roller coasters. So they
Yeah.
kind of shift around depending on how they're riding. Saw, for example, has dropped quite a lot down my list at the moment because it's got quite rough over the last sort of 12 months. So whereas previously I used to really enjoy riding it, I'm not enjoying it as much at the moment because it now has a very similar headbanging situation to Colossus, because it's getting a bit rough. So, but I think overall probably Rita, although I still like Rita, but if I had to put it one at the very bottom at the moment, it would probably have to be Rita.
Okay. And it's interesting to hear that you think it changes on how you ride it sometimes and how it's ridden. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I didn't think of putting things in that perspective, to be honest. And also, you mentioned about merchandise. So, do you feel that the merchandise sometimes gives them more towards the attraction, like more attraction towards the attraction, or do you feel that that's nothing really related to it?
I think it does. I think now more than ever, it's important to have a merchandise package that backs up a ride, but it needs to be something I noticed at Curse, for example, with Curse Alton Manor.
Yeah.
Some of the merchandise is brilliant, but some of it seemed quite irrelevant.
Okay.
For example, in the shop there's bars of soap. Now I don't see the link between bars of soap and Curse at Alton Manor. I
Yeah.
don't get it, you know. So that to me is pointless merchandise, and I'd be very surprised if it's not in the sale basket in Towers Trading by the end of the season. Because I can't imagine many people will go into Curse at Alton Manor gift shop, and go, let's buy soap.
Yeah, it is a
But I
bit
think
random.
people want merchandise because they want those memories, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably a theme park's dream come true when it comes to buying merchandise. I don't think I ever go to a theme park without walking away with something.
Yeah.
You know, I was at Alton Towers last week for a stag do. Now you would
Okay.
think you're on a stag do, the last thing would come away with is any merchandise. But I went into the Curse at Alton Manor shop, and all of a sudden, there's a new T-shirt there, and it's this beautiful plum-coloured T-shirt, and I had to buy it.
Yeah.
I fell in love with it. I didn't like the black ones and the white ones they'd done up to that point, but this beautiful plum-coloured thing, I just went, I've got to have that. So I came away with a piece of merchandise. And I so often do that. I can't.
Yeah.
I love merchandise. I actually really love it because it triggers memories.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree.
I think a lot of the merchandise I own, I could probably give you a good idea when I bought them.
Oh wow.
And what happened that day, or why maybe I bought that merchandise.
Yeah.
So they are memory locks for me as well. Obviously my medals are all testament to rides that I conquered as I
was
did
going to
them.
ask you about them later, but yes, you may talk about them now as well.
That's fine. I don't mind. But yeah, it's merchandise for me is as important. And I think Disney, they are the merchandise kings, aren't they? Let's face it. But I think they've got a broader scope for merchandise.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas because they don't merchandise to a ride necessarily.
No.
They're merchandising to a brand.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not as big a fan of theme park merchandise. So if you for example, I won't necessarily buy a mug because it's got Alton Towers stamped on it.
Yeah.
But I'll buy a mug if it's got the Smiler or the Wicker Man or 13 or, well, I own most of them anyway. So, so I have bought them. But I don't go out of my way because the brand isn't the park for me. The brand is the ride.
Yeah.
Whereas Disney, the brand is Disney.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so I think
I see what you mean.
that makes the appeal there a bit broader. But I think merchandise is very important these days, and everybody loves merchandise.
I must admit, my first piece of theme park merchandise I got was a picture of myself on Flying Fish, put on a T-shirt, because I was so proud. It was the first roller coaster I put my hands up on, and I was like, what, 16?
Yeah.
But I did it. So, yeah. So the Trek and Taylors want to know, are there any rides worldwide that you'd love to try?
Oh, there's a list. There is a list. I would love to go and do Velocicoaster. I know it's cliche because everybody wants to do Velocicoaster, but I would love to go and try it. I'm also quite a fan of Iron Gwazi. Thinking more Europe, I do love Ride to Happiness, or at least I think I would love it. But there are other rides, things like Shambhala at Portaventura, Fly and Taron at Phantasialand that I really would love to do. The list is endless. It really is. And the more people I get to know through YouTube and Instagram, especially American friends that I'm making now, who show me new parks, Busch Gardens this and Six Flags that, and all these other rides, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that, and oh, I want to do that, and oh, I want to do that, and and the list just gets longer and longer and longer. It really does. And I'm really hoping that I can start to sort of branch out into European parks at least next year.
Yeah.
And start ticking off some of those because, I think I'm very close, I think, to probably ticking off all the UK based ones now that I really want to do.
Oh, wow.
There's only a couple of parks left, and Blackpool still owes me 2 coasters. But yeah, in August this year, I'm going to go up to Flamingo Land. So then that will tick off the 10 coasters that are there.
Yeah.
And then next year, we're already booked in to go and stay in Skegness. So that'll be Fantasy Island then. And the 2 are there. And then I think, other than the 2 at Blackpool, they're probably the majority of the ones I want to do in the UK, or that I would make a real effort to get to parks to do. I know that there are other parks and other coasters, and if the opportunity arises, I will go and do them. But they're probably not ones that I would make a special journey to go and do like those ones. Those are the big ones for me.
Yeah, main on your bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah. random question. It is a ride, but it's not theme park as such, unless they have them at theme parks these days. But at fun fairs, and it's like a circle, and then it spins really fast, and you end up sticking to the side. Did you ever go on one of them?
No, and I've never seen one since I've been brave enough to probably try one.
Okay.
I quite like the idea of the centrifugal force being your restraint.
Yeah.
I also think it's potentially a massive accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But I love a spinny ride.
Yeah.
Absolutely love a spinny ride. I was on Twistertron last week, the new retro squad ride at Alton Towers, and I absolutely loved it. And Spin Jam for me is one of the best spinning rides I've ever done.
Yeah.
That and Samurai at Thorpe Park, which I also absolutely love. Yeah, it's me and spinning rides. Yeah, I do love them.
Yeah. Brilliant. I was just curious because obviously you're quite anxious about things. I would never be able to do one of those sticky things. I want to, but I just, when it got to it, I wouldn't be able to do it. No way. It looks fun though. Okay.
I
Going
always used to
on.
say that. I always used to say that I could never do it. And now I say to people, never say never.
Yeah.
Because one day you might, it's there might be that
YOLO.
one day. Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And and I'm the biggest person to have said, 2 years ago, I'll never do this ride. I'll never do that. I'll never do this. I'll never do that. And then slowly but surely that list of rides I'll never do has got smaller and smaller and smaller because
Yeah.
I've gone, but why? Why will you never do it?
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to inspire people to
Yeah.
push that fear and say, well, actually, what am I scared of, and why am I scared of it?
Yeah.
And
I must admit,
so
when you said YOLO at the beginning of this, I was like, actually, yeah, I need to think of that again because I completely forgot that even existed until you said it. So thank you.
that's all right.
Okay. Another fact for you is in 1999, apparently the Pepsi Max, the big one, was Europe's tallest roller coaster.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know how tall it was?
Well, it's there's some controversy because apparently it has two heights.
Yeah.
Its actual height, I think, is 213 feet.
Okay.
But Blackpool give the height above sea level
Okay.
as its height, which I think comes in at 230 feet.
Yeah, I've got it as 235.
There we go.
Yeah.
And I know because of Project Exodus at Thorpe Park will be 236 feet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Project Exodus as well. So I was going to ask what your thoughts are about it. Are you looking forward to it?
I'm very excited about Exodus. Just the idea of having a Mack hyper coaster, is great, and and the idea that it's at my local park as well, which is absolutely amazing, and it's just I'm hoping that they do it right. It looks a little bit on the short side, which is something Thorpe Park are guilty of a little bit with. Obviously, Swarm is quite short.
Stealth.
And I think Stealth is very short, but it gets everything done it's meant to do in the space it has. Whereas I think when you're putting in a coaster like Exodus, ideally it would be a bit longer. It does look a little bit on the short side, but I think it will deliver. It will deliver the thrill, and clearly they've gone for the record. So it will become the UK's tallest roller coaster, and that's what they've gone for. Merlin are very good at producing roller coasters that are record breakers.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I'll be able to go on it, but we'll soon find out. YOLO. Let's just keep saying YOLO.
You never know. Absolutely.
Yeah, you never know. And apparently at the moment, again, this might not be true, you can correct me or anyone in the chat, but King Dakar is the highest roller coaster in the world.
I believe that is correct. Yes.
And it has the fastest speed of 206 kilometers per hour.
Yes.
So, what is the fastest roller coaster you've been on?
It would be Stealth.
Yeah,
And with its 80 miles an hour. I'm not sure how that converts to kilometers an hour.
no, I'm not sure either.
But yeah, that's fast enough for me at the moment.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to do anything too fast. And apparently, the height is 139 meters with a drop of 127 meters. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy high from
yes.
the
So
car.
you wouldn't be able to do it, would you, if the drop of that high?
I don't know because I again I'm very much in this. I've said no in the past, but actually, on the right day with the right person, I probably would give it a go. I may live to regret it afterwards,
Yeah,
but at least I can say, well, I did it, and I don't like it. You
yeah,
know, so it would be a difficult one for me to do. It would take a lot of conditioning, if you like,
yeah,
for me to do it, and it would have to be fast tracked for me. I couldn't be hanging around in the queue watching it for too long because that sort of coaster, um, that would cause a big problem for me if I'm seeing how high it's going for too long. It would put me off. But I'm not going to say I would never get on it because I can't say that.
yeah. That's a good way of putting things again. Oh, you're making me feel so optimistic tonight. So thank you.
No,
Um, I have a quiz. So anyone in the chat who's not been with me before, basically, I have a few questions I'm going to ask Darren, and if he gets the answer before the chat does, then Darren gets the point. If the chat gets it first, then the chat gets the point. So we're going to go straight into it before we carry on with any other questions I have for you. The first question of the chat, of the quiz, should I say, is where would you find Drayton Manor? Drayton Manor. So, like in a county, what county would you find it?
that is in Staffordshire.
Yep. There you go. 1 point to Darren. I wonder if anyone else got it in the chat. No one else put it in the chat just yet.
Adam should
We'll
know that because it's his local park.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
Ah, I used to
yeah,
put
it's in
Tamworth.
Tamworth is the town. But yeah,
Ah,
it's
so
Tamworth in
Staffordshire.
Staffordshire.
Yeah,
It is in
yeah.
Staffordshire. Yeah.
Well, Oscar's airtime, thank you very much for trying. You did a good job. I don't know who's talking tonight. Is it M talking tonight on Oscar's airtime? I'm not
It'll
too
be
sure
M.
who it
It'll
is.
be M. Yeah, it will be M.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, M.
Derbyshire is next door.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I'm really bad at geography, to be honest. So I have a very embarrassing thing I'll tell you when we're not live, which is funny about geography. Anyway, next on to the question is the Traumatizer at Southport Pleasureland was moved to a different park in 2007 and refurbished and came back to a new park with a new name. Do you know what it is and what park?
I do. It's now called Infusion, and
Yep,
it is at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. However, it
yep.
is still traumatic.
Okay. Why is it traumatic?
It's a rough coaster. I believe as the Traumatizer, it was quite rough anyway.
Yeah,
The move didn't do well for it. And it's a rough coaster.
okay.
I mean it's amazing because it's over water, but it has got some very, very rough parts.
Yeah, the things I hear about Blackpool Pleasure Beach seem so fun and intriguing, but then I see pictures or something, or I hear stories just like what you're saying now, and I'm like, no way, no way. But then YOLO, I've got to keep thinking that now, haven't I? I've just got to keep
Yeah,
thinking
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Because I know people
And
that love Infusion. So,
yeah,
it's a personal opinion, it's a personal feeling about something, and until you've done it, you sort of you feel like if you make an opinion on it, it's you're judging a book by its cover almost.
yeah,
Once you've experienced it, you then have the right to go, that was awful. That was really awful. I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
So everything's, you got to try everything.
Yeah. I'll try and not be negative for the rest of this. And did you know that actually at Southport Pleasureland was actually a sister park to Blackpool Pleasure Beach? So just thought I'd let you know
Okay.
that. Question 3 is, which was the first roller coaster to be built at Thorpe Park and what year?
That would have been Colossus in 2002.
No.
No?
No. Chat, do you want to see if you know what it is? The first roller coaster to be built at Thorpe Park and what year? Oh, Darren, I thought you were going to get that. What other roller coaster could you think that was quite old? Might not be there anymore. That's a hint for you.
Because the only other thing I can think of is Flying Fish, because that's been kicking around Thorpe Park for a very long time.
Yeah, no, it's X No Way Out, which was done in 1996.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to be honest and say I thought Flying Fish was older than that, because it used to be called what was it called? Nick and I were having this conversation, Nick Walking with the Woods, about what it used to be called, because I posted a reel about it. Space Station something, I think it used to be called.
I can't remember it being that, but then again, yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I know X because obviously it's now The Walking Dead, sadly.
Yeah, I loved X No Way Out. Really loved it. Adam's saying it was X No Way Out, so
yeah,
yay, I got that right.
I bow to your knowledge.
It's not that great knowledge, but I knew my X No Way Out. And number 4, finally on the quiz, is Nemesis has 4 inversions. What are they, though?
There's a 0G loop.
Yep.
It has I want to say it's a barrel roll.
Yep.
0G loop, a barrel roll. I can't think what the other 2 are.
2 corkscrews.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, you got most of it right, so that's cool. And did you know that apparently it was the first inverted coaster and the only one until 2003, I think I put there, when Inferno was built. So it's twin. So that's exciting. Have you ridden both of them?
Yes.
And which one do you prefer?
I prefer Inferno.
Yeah, I love Inferno.
I love Nemesis's theming, and on a theming scale, and purely from an engineering perspective of the fact they had to literally cut a hole to put it in. Nemesis is amazing.
Yeah.
But for the ride and the intensity and all of that, I personally think Inferno is better.
Yeah.
That could change when Nemesis reopens, of course.
Yeah.
It might ride differently. But for me, I'm more of an Inferno man, and I have a nostalgic connection to Inferno.
Inferno's the one at Thorpe Park, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So I've ridden that one, and I hated it. Where you're obviously your feet are dangling, so when the floor just slowly moves down, I hate that bit. I hated it. And I went with school, so I was at the time when I was wearing flip flops because it was summer, and you had to take them off in case it fell, and the catastrophe. Okay, so that is the quiz. So thank you very much for playing along in the chat as well. Darren, you done it perfectly well. So the next fact I have for you, I've got so many here. Did you know that there was a TV presenter who owned and operated 3 different theme parks in the UK?
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
And it's a very famous 90s presenter. And he had some show on Channel 4 in the early 2000s. Do you have an idea who it might be? If I said Mr. Blobby, would that give you a hint?
Of course, Noel Edmonds.
Yeah, he had 3 theme parks apparently, and they were based on the area that his TV show was on, called Crinkly Bottom.
That's right.
And One of them became really well known as Blobbyland.
Yes.
But only one survived and is now known as Pleasurewood Hills. Have you ever been there?
I haven't. No. I've heard about it, but I think it's one of those that if I get an opportunity to go, I'll go, but it's
Yeah.
not on my priority list.
Yeah, I completely understand. I don't know if I'd want to go to it. Not maybe it has like some nostalgia to Mr. Blobby there. I used to be scared of Mr. Blobby, so I don't know if I'd want to go there or not. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't expected Noel Edmonds to own 3 theme parks. Like that's one of the most randomest facts in theme park history that I'd know of.
Yeah. Well, Noel Edmonds is quite a strange character.
He is, isn't he? Pleasurewood Hills is Toy and Wonderland's local theme park, but it's
Oh,
not that
okay.
great. So there you go.
Yeah.
It doesn't need
Yeah.
to be on your bucket
That's what I've
list.
heard.
Yeah,
It's as I said, I wouldn't not go to it if the opportunity arose, but I wouldn't make a special attempt to get there.
yeah. Okay, so I have seen that you also go to places like Warwick Castle. So not a typical
Yes.
theme park as such, but they do have attractions. Do you prefer places like that, or do you prefer the theme parks?
I prefer the theme parks, but I'm, I like places like that because I like history,
Yeah,
and especially my favorite period of history is the War of the Roses. Um, so going to Warwick Castle, which the Earl of Warwick featured so heavily in the War of the Roses,
yeah,
it was quite a it made my favorite history period come a little bit more to life.
hmm
To go in and explore that and to see, but overall I'd say theme parks are my thing.
yeah,
But I do like visiting places. I like variety.
yeah,
It is true, variety is the spice of life, and if I only ever did theme parks, I probably would get bored of them eventually. So it's nice to occasionally do the odd thing that isn't theme park related, to just have that break and that change, and that refresh, and then sort of go back into it. So
yeah. So kind of on the same sort of track as Warwick Castle, not being a theme park, we both know that one of our local places is Canterbury Park, and they have a little train ride there. So
they
you've
do.
shared that on the YouTube channel, your YouTube channel.
Yes,
Do you want to
yes.
tell the guests a bit more about what it's like?
It's. I remember when I discovered it, I was quite surprised because I didn't know it existed. We went to Canterbury one day. I think it was just after. Do you remember they refurbished Canterbury Park? I think it was.
Yeah,
Was it just pre-COVID?
just pre-COVID, you're correct. Yeah,
Yeah. And we'd gone there because everyone was raving about the splash park, and so we went there, and it was great, and I remember sitting and hearing a whistle. And I'm a railway person. I love steam railways. I used to volunteer on a little steam railway in Wales when I lived in Wales.
okay.
So I recognised the whistle instantly, and I went, "There's a train, and it's not the main line.
Yeah,
That's a steam train or a steam locomotive. Where's that coming from?" And I remember looking past the play area and seeing steam and thinking, "Okay, let's go and have a look." And discovering the railway, and actually then discovering that it'd been there for a number of years.
yeah,
It wasn't that it had been added as part of the refurbishment of the park. It was there. It's been there for a very long time, and it was a lovely little discovery. Because it's nice to have those sort of things around.
definitely.
It's it's a pleasant little trip. And for the cost, I think it's really good value for money. I think
Yeah,
the entire trip is approximately 10 minutes,
yeah,
and it's about £2. And I think when you sort of weigh that up and think, well, what else could you get for £2 these days?
exactly.
And I think it's lovely, and I think it's predominantly run by volunteers, which is fantastic. I know they do have some full-time staff because they have to, but I know that they are trying to cultivate that volunteer workforce, which would be great, because a lot of the preserved railways now do operate mainly with a volunteer workforce.
Yeah.
And and I really hope that they can get that sorted and get support, and people do continue to support it, which is why I wanted to film it and get it out there, and show people that this exists,
Yeah.
and come and visit, because actually it's a really nice ride.
And it's a lovely area, a lovely park as well, isn't it? And going on the
Incredibly
train,
peaceful.
you get to see so much more of the park that you might not be able to see. Have you ever been to Islip Lido?
Yes, I have.
So
Yes.
you've been on the train there?
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's a lovely train, and I love doing the walk around it as well.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
yeah, turns out me and Darren live not too far away from each other, so we know little places. So I thought I'd just ask him about those. Got a few more things that I want to ask you before I go. You have done running at the parks before, haven't you? Is that part of the reason why I see all your medals behind you?
Yes. Last year I did Run Alton Towers.
Okay.
It was an amazing event, and I fully encourage anybody to go and do it. It's I'm not a runner, or I wasn't a runner, and it started off. I think it was my friend, the coaster capturer Dale,
Yeah.
said he was going to do it, because obviously, as he talks about very openly and freely, like I do, we both suffer from mental health illnesses, if you like, depression mainly, and anxiety being another one. And he'd been working with a local men's mental health group, and he wanted to do it. First of all, as we started off, we do it as a fitness thing, because we both wanted to lose a bit of weight and get a bit fitter. So he mentioned it, and I said, "Oh well, I will come and do that with you. I'd love to do that. It's 5 kilometers. It's not the longest distance. It's doable." And then I said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if we ran it for charity?" Actually, and so that's when he said, "Oh well, I'm going to run it for this Andy's Man Club that have helped him through a lot of bad spells in his life," and I ran it for Mind, the national mental health charity.
Yeah.
For very similar reasons, and then actually it kind of then snowballed a little bit, because then some of our other friends said that they wanted to do it with us as well, and we ended up doing it as a big group,
Yeah.
which was lovely. And I'm still running now. I'm not running at the moment. I sort of took a bit of a rest over the winter, because I'm not a cold, wet weather runner.
No.
But I am waiting for the season to start, because I have already booked to do it again this year.
Okay.
And I thoroughly intend to beat last year's time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start training earlier in the year this year, and try and get that bit fitter and that bit faster. But it was just an amazing event. It was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
The atmosphere was amazing. And then of course all the rides will then open afterwards
Yeah.
for all the runners and spectators to go and enjoy. And that just added a whole other level to finishing it, and in a reasonable time was a great achievement anyway. And then to be able to go off and do rides that I loved, and on a very quiet day, to be fair, was just it just made it the perfect day.
Yeah. I remember contacting Run Disney because I'd love to do that. And I've seen in America that they do that where the wheelchairs go last. But they said for Paris they wouldn't do that. So I think that kind of sucks. But oh well.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
bit.
it does suck. What has been your favourite run to do then? Because you've obviously got a lot of medals.
Well, these are actually ride medals. The only
Okay.
competitive run I've ever done was Run Alton Towers.
Okay.
I am very tempted, because I like a challenge and I like to push myself, as is well known. I'm
Yeah.
quite tempted to enter the ballot for the London Marathon.
Oh wow.
I know it's a little bit of a jump from 5 kilometers, which is what, three and a bit miles to
Yeah,
26.25 miles.
yeah,
But what's the worst that can happen?
exactly. And you can do it. I'm sure you can. With your optimism and your YOLO,
Yeah.
you can do it.
Well, I mean, I obviously I take my hat off to Adam Rand's Adventures, because he's in the London Marathon for next year, and he
Yeah,
started his training, and I absolutely take my hat off to him, because obviously we're the same age, Adam and
yeah,
I, and and I think, well, if he's willing to give it a go, then why can't I? So I'm not totally sold yet on the idea. I may leave it until the year after,
yeah.
to get a bit more running experience, because Adam's run it 5 times already, so he knows what he's doing. He's a pro. I'm sure he'd give Paula Radcliffe a run for her money.
Yeah,
I'm not. I do 5 kilometers, and that's about what I can do at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see.
yeah,
It's one I would like to do. It really
yeah,
is. It's another one of those. I like challenges, and I like to meet
yeah.
challenges and beat them.
Maybe
So
one day you and Adam can run together,
yeah, absolutely. Or he can
and
push me in a
maybe.
wheelchair.
Well, that make us two then. We can maybe support each other in a group and go and cheer on. That would be quite
Yeah,
cool.
that would be brilliant. That would be
I
brilliant.
think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. With your Insta, I've seen that you have some amazing photos. So, what is your tips or camera techniques that you'd like to share with us?
One of the things I always say to people is, I'm kind of stealing this from an American YouTube and Instagram group called the Zuda Loopers, and they put it in the best terms that I could possibly understand: is you already have the best camera that you can have, that sort of thing, because these days phones are as good as anything else. The cameras on phones are so great. I don't have a camera. I don't own a camera.
Okay.
Literally all my photographs are taken on my phone.
And is that your vlogs as well?
All my vlogs filmed on a phone.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing I've got one of those very cheap sports action cameras, and I only bought it because I went to Paulton's Park last year and they said I could film on ride, but that I would need to have that kind of GoPro style camera to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything I film is filmed on my phone. And
Yeah.
then it's just about learn how to use your phone's editing software, because all phones now have built-in editing software. And quite often, just tweaking things like the brightness, the contrast, can turn a good picture into a great picture.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky that I'm very good friends with Sam the Coaster Tog, who we all know takes absolutely phenomenal photographs, and I could
Yeah.
only ever dream of being anywhere near as good as him. He's absolutely phenomenal, but he's obviously helped me a lot with my photography, just teaching me about how to take shots, angles of things, but at the end of the day, I think photography as well is a very it's a personal thing, because
Yeah.
just because somebody else doesn't like a photograph, it doesn't mean it's not a good photograph. I mean, obviously there is such a thing as a bad photograph, but it is personal, and I've got much better thanks to Sam, and him helping me and being with him at parks, and him sort of helping talk me through little bits and pieces of little sort of tips here and there that have just taken my photography to another level, and I'm very lucky to have that. And of course I'm very good friends, of course, as well, with Lauren Lift Hill Lauren,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
is also another excellent photographer. So I'm very lucky in that respect. But
Yeah.
if anybody does want any advice on photography, both of those people are so approachable, and anybody can message them and ask them, and they will help and support. That's the one thing I'll say about both of them, is that they are so supportive and
Yeah.
so helpful, that it's not like they don't want to keep it to themselves because they don't want anybody else to be as good as them. They want everybody to take good photos, you know, and I think that is a fantastic quality. So if anybody does want any help with photography, message them, you know, find them on Instagram and message them, because I know that they are always happy to help people.
I'll go and give them a message then, because I'm not very great.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Darren. And just before we go, one last thing. If you were to rate your top 5 parks, what would they be? Because I'll tell you what, apparently the top 5 parks are in 2023. Okay, apparently this is what they are. At number 5 is Fantasyland. At number 4 is Drayton Manor. Number 3 is Chessington. Number 2 is Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and number 1 is Alton Towers. So what would your top 5 be?
I've not been to Fantasy Island, because that's the one up in Skegness, isn't it? Inglemells.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've heard some very good things about it. But I've also heard some negative things about it. So, so for me, I couldn't put it in my top 5 because I've not been there. So straight away, I'd have to take that one out.
Yeah.
I think I'd put Blackpool in possibly at number 5.
Okay.
It makes it into the top 5, but probably only just, because although it's got some good rides, the park itself is a little bit tatty and a bit mismatch, and there are things there that I didn't like operationally, and so I'd have to put that in at number 5, purely based on the rides that it has. I think number four. I think I'd have Drayton Manor at number 4.
Okay.
I really enjoyed Drayton Manor. I think number 3, I would put Chessington in at number 3.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be interchangeable with number 2, because number 2 for me at the moment is Thorpe Park. But again, it depends on what I'm looking for. So those two are quite interchangeable. There are some times where I would rate Chessington. Chessington, as I said earlier on, has the better variety, does the better shows. Thorpe has the better thrills. So, you know, and so yeah, so that's quite interchangeable. The number 1, which I think might surprise people, and I'm actually quite surprised it's not in that top 5 already, is probably Poulton's Park.
Okay.
It's an absolutely amazing park. It isn't a thrill park. It's very much a family park. But it's probably the only park I can honestly say was beautiful. The attention to detail in across the park is just unbelievable, and it's so tidy and it's so well maintained, you know, even to the fact that I'm sure if you took a ruler and measured the grass on each lawn, every blade would be exactly the same length right across the park.
Wow.
All the hedgerow is all nicely manicured or whatever. Yeah, I think manicured is probably the right term. You know, and it's just a really, really lovely park. Even the car park is just beautifully tarmacked. It's smooth. It's, you know, it's not like Chessington where you feel like you're going off road and you're worried about your axles and your suspension when you go into the car park. You know, it was just so beautifully smooth and well laid out and clearly marked, and you know, and I say it was just a beautiful park, and it's got some great rides. They're not amazingly thrilling, but they are great rides. And obviously there's a lot of investment been happening there.
Yeah.
And you can see it and you can feel it, you know, and it's been invested well. You know, I think they've looked at what they've already got and gone, okay, what could we buy that would enhance what we already have? And I think they've done that really, really well. that their dinosaur area with Flight of the Pterosaur and Velociraptor, great rides. Storm Chaser, of course, it's probably the closest thing the UK has to the Ride to Happiness.
Okay.
It's got a great spin on it, and and there was so much there that for children, which is also great, because I
Yeah.
don't think there was a single ride there. Oh no, there was one ride, the Cyclonator, which is the sort of spinning swing ride. It was
Yeah.
the only ride in the entire park that Gabriel couldn't do under 1.2.
Yeah.
And so that made it extra special as well, because there were some in his mind some very big coasters there,
Yeah.
and he was able to do all of them, and he
That's brilliant.
absolutely loved it. So I think for me, I'd have to give it to Paulton's Park. I really would.
Brilliant. I've never actually thought about that being a theme park as such, to be honest. I've always just thought of it as Peppa Pig World, because I know that's where Peppa Pig World is, isn't it?
I used to be the same. I used to be exactly the same. I knew about
Yeah.
Peppa Pig World. I hate Peppa Pig, so I would never have gone there. But then to find out that there's this whole park attached to Peppa Pig World, or
Yeah.
rather Peppa Pig World is attached to this amazing park. I know it hasn't always been amazing. A few
Yeah.
years ago, it was quite dilapidated, and it wasn't a great park. But they've invested so much money in it, and it's worked for me.
Okay, brilliant.
It is it's a great park.
I'll have to go and check out pictures and see if I can grab anyone little. I don't know anyone little anymore, but who knows? Maybe I can. Is it okay to go without children, do you think?
I
Or
think it is. I think it is. I think if you
okay.
are somebody who is not great with thrills, but you like rides,
Yeah.
I actually don't think anybody would be totally out of place there.
That's brilliant to know. I'll have to look into it and then obviously find someone to take me. But yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that. And thank you so much for being a guest on my show today. I've really loved talking to you every single moment. I've learned so much more about theme parks that I didn't even think to look into. And you've been such a brilliant guest to have. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me today, Darren. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And I'm just going to say goodbye to Darren now, and I'll say goodbye to the rest of you. So I'll see you in a bit, Darren.
Yep. See you later.
And I just want to say a massive thank you to all in the chat as well for staying by me, for seeing Darren and asking him questions and chatting along and letting us know what you think and what rides you like and things in the future that you'd like to know about in the parks. So thank you so much, and for playing along in the quiz, of course. I am grateful for everyone who's watched, and I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you next week with a little bit of pixie dust with Emma. Take care.